Hi, so we're here today to talk about why gaming, social and streaming show no signs of slowing down for Gen Z. Could you all just give yourselves a little bit of an introduction? Maybe starting with you, Annalie?
Yeah, sure. Nice to meet you all. I'm Annalie Bridgstock. I'm Exec Director of Data and Product at Jungle Creations, and we are a social publisher and social agency.
I'm Nick Thomas. I'm Editorial Director at Ampere Analysis. We're an industry research company doing data analysis on media, sports and gaming.
I'm Jamie Lyons. I'm Managing Partner for Gaming and Virtual Experience at PhD in the UK and globally, and essentially connect brands, whether they're in gaming or out of gaming, with gamers.
Hello everyone, I'm Alex Ginn. I'm the Head of Demand for UK and Europe at iion. We are full funnel gaming, so we help brands and agencies find their way in the gaming world.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. So let's get started. Nick, can I come to you first? Can you just, at Ampere, you do a load of research into what's going on with consumers and content. Can you just tell us where Gen Z are spending most of their time across media and entertainment platforms as a way to kick things off?
Yeah, thanks, Sam. So yeah, we conduct major surveys in 30 markets twice a year, asking people about their media consumption habits and their preferences. Forgive the notes, but this is just hot off the press. So I looked at UK consumers aged 18 to 24, because I thought that would be relevant for today, and looked to see where they are over-indexing and under-indexing against the UK average, just to sort of frame our discussion today and moving forward. So a lot of it is intuitive. Obviously, they're spending less time than average watching broadcast TV. We know that. Slightly interesting, perhaps more interestingly, slightly less than average, less likely than average users to watch streaming services daily, less likely than average users to use social media daily. But where they are over-indexing, and I'm sure we'll touch on this, 3 areas in particular. Watching videos by influencers, that's a huge deal. 59% are doing so on a daily basis. So I think we might discuss the role of influencers and the opportunity that presents itself for brands there. More likely than average users to listen to music streaming services, and I know that's kind of, obviously we're concurrent with the audio session as well. That struck me as interesting. There's also a really interesting female skew in there, which I might touch on very briefly. Female users much more likely to listen to streaming services. And then the third one, given the expertise on the panel, more likely than average users to play games. So 39% of 18 to 24s in the UK are playing games on a daily basis, according to our survey. Just one quickly on terms of the platforms. YouTube is the biggest platform. Captain Obvious, it's not particularly inspiring thing to say. However, I think it's worth reflecting that the ubiquity of YouTube sometimes blinds us to just how well they're doing across all the areas they're in. They are by far. We also track in our gaming survey where gamers get their video content. I know we talk about Twitch and other platforms. YouTube is ahead by miles, always ahead by miles. And they're a huge music service, as we know, by default. So don't underestimate YouTube. They are the biggest, but the ubiquity sometimes blinds us to their importance. And then just quickly, Netflix is the second most visited media service amongst this cohort, but it does skew heavily female. And then TikTok and Instagram, no surprise again, are really important for 18 to 24s, both skewing female according to our data. And then the other one, Snapchat, actually often gets overlooked, but we still have over half of 18 to 24s are still visiting Snapchat regularly. Sometimes gets missed out of it. There's lots more I could say, but I'll stop there because that was just to kick us off. I'm sure there's lots more to say.
Look, I'm gonna crudely set things up and say we have 2 absolute gaming experts over here.
Can't you tell because we look the same?
Exactly,
Yeah.
we're ticking that box.
Central casting.
Yeah.
So Jamie, can we come to I'm just kidding, this is actually Jamie. I think we kick things off with social media, Annalie. Tell us what your reaction is to some of what Nick's just said. For me, I remember using Snapchat when I was much younger, but then it kind of felt like I didn't see much of it, and now it's massive again. What are some of the trends you're seeing? Just to explain the landscape a little bit to us and what you're, I guess, telling your clients.
Yeah, it's definitely all about, actually, the one interesting thing that I saw was YouTube is definitely at the top. We talk a lot about Snap and TikTok, and they are kind of channels and platforms that Gen Z talk about the most, but they are using YouTube all the time. It's something like 85% of them are on YouTube. Then it's Snap, TikTok, and all the rest of it. I think the thing with social now is that it's part of the everyday life for everything, and it is for a lot of us as well, right? It's where you go for recipes, it's where you go for search, it's where you go to find out what book to read. It's not just about social anymore, it's about your life and your experience. So I think it's so much more than just a place to communicate and create network. It's actually about your everyday life as well. So yeah, I think a lot of that's what we saw as well, see day to day.
What is it that makes these platforms specifically so attractive compared to maybe other platforms that older generations are using?
I think what I'm hearing, because I'm not obviously in that generation, but they're all saying that it's very authentic and real. So Snapchat is all about that really quick new vlogging snap, sort of really quick snaps and introductions to people in their lives. Same with TikTok, it's very fun, it's very engaging, and the kind of algorithm is so hyper alert to what you want. It's actually very, very relevant, and it's just really snackable and really relevant and authentic as well.
Yeah, and why do you think there's so much time and attention being spent on these platforms?
I mean, Annalise nailed it. Oh, sorry, my mic's fallen off. I think it is because YouTube in particular, as you say, serves so many purposes. It's just the default platform for whatever your mood is, whatever you want, whether it's music or gaming videos or recipes or just whatever. I mean, I think, as I say, 59% watching influencers daily. I still think probably generationally I'm struggling with that concept that's now, such an important part of young users' lives, and I think I think that's a problem. I guess a lot of people making decisions within agencies or brands are probably closer to my demographic than the users. And we were saying earlier that if you talk to Gen Zs that within your organisation or your family or whatever, they will just get things easily. And the challenge for others is to understand that and navigate that opportunity that still seems to be underexploited.
Obviously, we have that data, but I know we spoke a lot of the future of brands yesterday about this Verizon Me Search, right? For brands, their CMO may say to them something like, well, my daughter spends loads and loads of time on TikTok. We really need to get TikTok into the campaign. Is that something you see with clients every day?
Yes, and we actually have a lot of clients who come to us with hundreds and hundreds of channels, and a lot of them don't have different purposes. They just all have done it because someone said, let's go on Snap and we've got to do it. And then it kind of just dies because you run out of momentum, there's no strategy, and then you end up having clients come to you with 48 channels and they go, what do I do with them? So I think it really needs to be purpose-driven and user-first as well, and I genuinely mean that not from like a random advertising buzzword perspective, but actually, why have you got this channel? What's the purpose? Why is it different to the rest of your ecosystem? And how's it going to play a different role? And I think we're going to talk later about the purpose and opportunities across all of them, but they all have different opportunities, I think, in many different ways.
Yeah, and I was sorry.
Yeah, no, I just was going to pick up on that. I think that was one of the takeaways is that successful sort of campaigns on these platforms generally really understand the purpose of the campaign, but also the dynamics, the potential of each specific platform. And I think when campaigns don't work, it's often just because that hasn't been understood. But again, native users who are fluent on that platform will understand the opportunity. The example that I was quoting when we were chatting earlier was around Billie Eilish's sort of teaser campaign for her album on Instagram. So she has 111 million followers. She made them all her close friends because that doesn't cost anything. It's straightforward, easy to do. If you understand the platform, you know the significance of that. She gained 6 million followers in a couple of days. That wasn't an expensive or sophisticated or overthought campaign. It was just an intuitive thing that someone who understands that platform would do.
And in terms of, I'm eager to bring in the kind of other channels as well. I was surprised personally, and this is again Me Search, right? To hear that actually YouTube was the #1 place where Gen Z got all of their content, even if they were into gaming, where you'd naturally think actually you'd go to Twitch, right, for your content. So can you tell me a bit about your reaction to what Nick said?
Yeah, sure. I mean, YouTube is ubiquitous. That's why we forget about it. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to YouTube it. It's got as much of kind of a verb status as Googling does. So we do often discount it. And also that the ad product is so established, it's just part of the media plan. If you're thinking about innovation, you don't immediately jump to YouTube. If you think about Gen Z, you don't immediately jump to YouTube. So yeah, I mean, gamers are there. Like, 51% of under 14s follow a gaming streamer or influencer on YouTube, regardless of if they game or not. Like, this is a huge heartland for Alpha as well as Z, but all the way through. And so yeah, it's easy for us to just take it for granted.
Is it like particular types of games that Gen Z are playing more of compared to older generations, or are they online more? Like, what's the dynamic? Why are Gen Z so focused on gaming? Well, that's what we hear, right?
Sure, yeah, I think, thanks mate. I think from what we know of how Gen Z have kind of changed their behaviours towards gaming since, let's say, COVID, I'm sorry to say it, but it's going to have to come up at some point. For a lot of Gen Z, some of their first concerts were Roblox or, Fortnite during lockdown. So where they were lacking that social element of, being outside and seeing their friends or going to school, etc., gaming really bridged that gap between social and entertainment, and that's where we see a huge amount of Gen Z, coming together, is in those social games where they can be, they can multiplayer together or they can explore together. So yeah, your Roblox, your Minecrafts, your Fortnites, etc., those sorts of things. A lot of them are now spreading democracy and Helldivers. So there's a lot of different, a lot of single players is that's more for our generation now. We're a bit slow, our reflexes are a bit dead, but they like to be very active and they like to communicate together. They've all got the fanciest headset and they'll finish school and they'll get home and they're still with their mates online.
Yeah, it's that social element, isn't it? I think that's why Fortnite became so popular, is everyone just chatting via the channels online, so you just still feel interconnected and it's a communal experience. Okay, so look, what are the new trends? What's going on in let's start with gaming. What's going on in the space that maybe the people in the room might not know about yet? What are the latest things that you're seeing?
I think the most newsworthy at the moment is within the industry. There's an awful lot of turmoil, huge redundancies, 10,000 last year, 8,000 already this year within game development.
Why is that?
COVID overhang, basically. So basically, if you think about what happened in COVID, massive upswell of game playing and huge growth in that sector. And therefore, the delayed impact of sort of the return to socializing offline meant that there was sort of this extra year lag. And so the combination of these incredibly high-value companies having shareholders demanding efficiencies, alongside a really cluttered competitive ecosystem, loads of games, like last year was widely held to be one of the best years ever for game releases, all of this kind of stuff has meant that there's huge competition. That plus cost of living crisis has meant that the workforce has diminished. So the industry itself is having a bit of a tough time. Outwardly, though, in terms of like the broader gaming ecosystem and kind of for gamers more so, there is a huge amount of choice. There are incredible game titles out there. There's been a move historically, or the last year or two, to free-to-play models, jumping on what Fortnite and those guys have done, all built on kind of the microtransaction and in-game kind of opportunity to monetize. Mobile gaming is so dominant in China, and that's starting to really move over to the West even more, beyond just the casual single player. On hardware, you've got the likes of the Steam Deck, which has changed kind of the interface. You can get portable gaming devices that are worth buying now, and there's a lot of kind of a hardware race into that place. But the trends for gamers, there is no holistic gamers audience. This is a million different little groups and communities who are passionate about a developer or a genre or a game, and they have their own focuses, their own trends. And you'll have a Pal World or a Helldivers come in and go like massive moment, but that's just because there's enough little communities jumping on one indie. I think generally like the trends in the conventional sense that we look to as kind of marketeers don't exist in quite the same way. There are so many different subcultures.
And we're going to move on to the implications of that on marketers in a little bit, but more innovations, what's going on?
I can't beat that. That was absolutely flawless. Thank you, mate.
Anytime.
I can try and connect the dots across all of gaming and social and streaming with that. One of the big things we're talking about a lot is creating fandoms. Everyone talks about that. That's not new, but actually world building is really huge at the moment. So the idea of actually creating your online experiences in an offline way, and all kind of in a synonymous, lovely world. So a couple of examples of that. Lego's really doing this really well at the moment. So they've created Lego and Fortnite together. That's the right one, isn't it? Yeah, I was like, so they've created this like safe metaverse for children, a game between Lego and Fortnite. And then they've also done the online to offline play as well, where they've got a kid design playground in New York, a Lego playground. And so it's all about this world, and you're kind of attracting generations to you rather than pushing our content or content to them. And it's about the genuine need and kind of world building, I guess, to attract those audiences. That's a really big thing that we're seeing. And then I guess to pivot from that, it's definitely not about copying what other people are doing. So we've seen this done really badly lately. So don't know if you remember seeing, there was a TikTok ad that came out from Maybelline, which was the tube with the mascara. And I still thought that was real until about a few weeks ago, because I just didn't think of it. I was like, yeah, it looks real, whatever. And then this whole fake ad thing came out, and I was like, oh, was that fake? Right. Well, I'd missed that. But anyway, tons of other people started following, because they're like, oh, we need to jump on this trend. We need to be with it. We need to be cool. North Face did a puffer jacket on the London Eye. The Big Ben. It's not cool when it doesn't look real. Like, that was the point. The point of the ad was that we didn't really expect it to be AI. And people just kept copying, and like, don't just jump on the next trend. Actually find something that's interesting or different and like actually just cuts through. So yeah, there are a couple of things to add.
I've just got one other thing. We also track TV and movie commissioning, so to see what's coming down the pipeline. And one of the big trends in the last 12 months, unsurprisingly, is an investment in games IP as TV series or movies, because I think we've all seen that the comic book franchises are kind of in decline. That's a natural process of it. So I think the success of Super Mario Bros. And Last of Us, people are saying, oh, this games thing could catch on. So I think the idea of building out sort of cross-media franchises and investing heavily in movies and TV series. And I think we saw a spike with the success of the TV series and the movie, a spike in interest in those games as well. So there's a kind of virtuous circle there. And we expect more of those to be coming down the pipeline. I think one of the challenges we were talking about earlier, though, is, I mean, the movie industry, for example, it's a kind of from the idea to release is 2 or 3 years, and that's a hell of a long time in sort of in a kind of Gen Z gaming world where things change kind of weekly, and it's a big investment, a big scary investment. You could be backing a game which suddenly just goes out of favour. So there are risks associated with that. But we will see in the next 2 years, we'll see a lot more movies and TV coming that are based on games IP.
Yeah, and there's been some really good examples of that, and I know some examples that have flopped as well, right? Like,
yeah, it's about understand. I mean, the content's got to be good. I know the other trend that we're not going to talk about is around. You have success with Barbie. Okay, so that means people really want to see films about toys. Well, not necessarily. They want to see good films. So they want to see good films, and if they happen to be about franchises they're familiar with, so much the better.
Let's change tact a little bit and move on to brand engagement, because I know we've spoken about it very briefly. Rise of fake home ads has been a massive trend this year. We've seen absolutely loads of it. Our editor-in-chief of the media lead at Omar was talking a lot about gym boxes ads. I don't know if you saw that on top of the bus. That was never actually a real ad, and it went viral online, and that's challenging. Look, let's look at what a good brand engagement does look like. How we're talking about Gen Z, right? So talk to me about, let's maybe have a look at gaming. What does a good brand engagement look like in gaming? Because this is a challenging space for marketers to get right.
For sure. I think as a rule of thumb, it has to add to an experience, right? You can't just slap a banner in a game and go, boom, there you go. You have to really add to what the player's going through and make it immersive. Otherwise, we've seen lots of brands jump into, let's say, Roblox, for example, and a lot have flopped. Let's say I think there was one game created to get youngsters to start using the rail network in the UK, and it was like, that's not very exciting, I'm sorry. But then you've got like the Vans World skate park, absolutely amazing, and it came out, 7 years ago, something, when it's absolutely still killing it. So it all depends on how you can make something that's fun, engaging, people that they can talk about, they can bring people to it. It's not just a one-off thing, and I think gaming needs to be considered as not a one-off channel. You don't just chuck money at TV one time and go, we've done it. Gaming needs to be something that you have to build a relationship with that audience. You have to you have to really grow your message with them, and gamers are very loyal, and we're also very mouthy. So if we don't like something, we will be on Reddit and we will tell the world that we didn't like it, and then everyone else will join in and agree with us. So, but if we love it, God, we'll sing your name to the hills. So it's about getting the message right, making sure that it's immersive and it actually adds to the user's experience, I would say.
Yeah. Have you seen any particular brilliant campaigns, or maybe some of your clients' campaigns that have really stood out?
I mean, all of mine have been exceptional. Of course. So within the Roblox and Fortnite ecosystem, there are some great activations. You know, we lean into that quite hard with a lot of our clients and make sure that we connect with that community, right? Don't just create an asset and go, ta-da. You've got to actually make sure you're connecting with the communities around it. I think the precedent was really set, actually, by Coca-Cola getting it so wrong. So when Coca-Cola did a TV ad, which seemed to imply that gamers are trying to simultaneously vanquish a foe and then they've finished gaming, that kind of caused a great kind of backlash and a great rebellion against this "they don't get us" kind of mindset. And I think Heineken did a really good counter to that by kind of showing this idea of someone getting ready for a night out, and the payoff is that they're getting a headset on and they're hanging out with their friends virtually. And it's legitimizing in mainstream media the mainstream behavior of socializing virtually as well as physically. So I think like a really macro sense that they really nailed that. But like just going back to what Alex said, like it's about being value additive. It's about not just slapping your brand in there and going, we did it. And I think that value addition is increasingly nuanced, increasingly sophisticated. You know, it could just be that you see a community. You know, we get you RuneScapers, and you know, we care about something you care about. And I think there's a definite opportunity to tap into all of these different kind of niches and really stand for something as a brand with these audiences from a standing start.
And
I was just going to add to that. We had a recent campaign for Caramilk, and it's one of those with branded content where it just feels a little bit fake sometimes when you don't really have a good insight or a good activation. And so Caramilk came to us. We've got a brand called Twisted. It's food and drink. And essentially we created a whole bunch of recipes that created, caramel cocktails, caramel cake, that type of thing. But then we took it offline, created a hidden phone booth somewhere in East London, and then we kind of broadcast it across our social channels to get people to come. They came through this phone booth, had a whole Caramilk pop-up bar that was then rebroadcast again. All those the recipe videos got 2,000 likes, 10 million views, and then we got I think search doubled or quadrupled that day as well. So it's just kind of about finding for our audience who really like food and drink, who really like recipes, the kind of Caramilk integration with our product and our solution, rather than kind of, sometimes you do get briefs and I look at them, I go, that's just not going to fit with our audience and our channel. And then you just have to say no to them because it doesn't work. It looks like an ad, and people, and especially Gen Z, can see it and they just switched off and unlike you. So to make sure it really aligns with the brand and your audience as well.
We had Kraft Heinz speaking on stage yesterday, their creative director, who was talking about some of their social campaigns, and he said, half the social campaigns we do start out with this crazy idea. We make a product, and they had this example, I wish I could show you, of like a phone case, and in the back there was a little flap and you could put your Heinz ketchup in there and just carry it around because, you know, you've always got to have your ketchup with you, right? And he said, actually, to create a really good social campaign, it's so much more than just, maybe putting some pay behind it, but having this great idea that you can amplify organically. And how much, you're talking briefly about kind of events, experiential, the real world. How much of Gen Z feel like they need something a bit more with their social? Feel like it needs to be based in the real world in some way?
I think we're finding more and more that brands are asking for it so that it just has a bigger impact.
Right.
And I feel like there's a bit of exclusivity around being the ones to find that offline experience, online experience offline. So I think it's more of a kind of exclusivity and a kind of an additional impact and additional reach. I don't think people necessarily, Gen Z are necessarily asking for it, but when they find it, they're very excited by it, and we do see an incremental impact on the campaign effectiveness when we do it. So
let's talk about budgets, because I think social, there seems to be the budget there. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. Budget in SVOD, because it's moving from linear, and we're seeing audiences move over from linear broadcast to digital. Gaming, still kind of in the experimentation budget. If a brand has it, it doesn't seem like there's a huge amount of money going into it, despite the audiences. What's the challenge there? Like, how do we unlock these budgets and start getting money flowing into where the audiences are?
I think the first bit of it is that it has to make sense for the brand and their business objectives. You can't go with a gaming vanity project. Like the job of the agency or the brand team in-house is to go, we have these objectives, whether that's measured by audience growth or sales or something really like salient and tangible, and then you need to find a way to see if gaming is an appropriate way to improve that. If it isn't, it's not the right solution. So I think gaming is, for most brands, if it's budgeted for at all, it's in the experimentation pot, right? It is in that innovation bit, and that's where it belongs initially. It has to earn its place on the main plan. It needs to justify the opportunity to connect at scale. I mean, someone agrees.
Yeah.
But and so we tend to use this innovation agenda framework, dip your toe in all the way through to be a market leader, and here is a roadmap, here are the checkpoints to go, are you getting the results that you can measure in your own systems, within your till data, to show this is resonating, that it's working. And if it isn't, then it might not be the right solution, or it might not be that it's being articulated and executed the right way. So yeah, very few brands, apart from some FMCGs, have this as their core investment space. Mm-hmm. But I mean, from personal experience, we are seeing bigger budgets than we have done historically, and we are seeing more brands interested than ever before. So there is now an awareness that the eyeballs are there, maybe we should be. Alex, are you seeing the same huge amount of money flow through?
And I mean, it's definitely changed, as Jamie said. It's gone from the test budgets and dipping your toes into to working out. The brands that have done that, they've worked out what has been successful for them and where they want to go, or if they want to evolve that, etc. And if we take it, for example, L'Oreal for this year, they've decided that gaming was so successful for them last year, and they have obviously so many different products, and a lot of them are tailored towards Gen Z audiences, and they know that it's been successful for them, in game, around the game, away from the game. So they've now built themselves a huge plan for the rest of the year, which is say, right, we're actually taking a huge chunk away from our social budgets, and we're going to do executions here. We're going to put avatars in this game. We're going to put in-game items here and there, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z, because they know it works for them. And there are these brands that have, done those 5, 10K tests, right? And now they're like, right, how much can I spend? And the good thing about gaming is, if you dream it, we can code it. There is literally no limit. But so if you know what you want, you know how to be successful, you know how to get your message across and who your audience is, gaming can be like one of the best channels for it. And if attention is something that you want to focus on, you can't match it. Gaming is the best for attention at the moment. Right.
And it seems budgets being unlocked for brands. Is that mainly coming into organic social, or are you seeing more budget being unlocked for paid? Like how's that?
I'm smiling because there's so many, this is a minefield at the moment, isn't it? My first thought when you asked the question was, I still think there's a fundamental flaw with the way we're planning media, because I do think we still do it in buckets. I know we do look at the overall reach, but I just don't think we're doing ROI. I just don't think we're doing it properly. There's something missing, because I still see social budgets being kind of dropped in and then pulled out again. And there's obviously a reason for that being pulled out. So there's obviously something around not knowing what the purpose is, or the kind of contribution of that channel versus a different channel. And I think, especially in this current time, we are seeing lots of budgets changing. So I guess that was my first thought when you first asked the question.
I was going to say, are brands and especially I'm looking at the bigger agencies, are they actually set up in the right way to work for Gen Z? Is there going to have to be a big change in the way we plan?
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about this actually last week with a couple of media agencies, and it was about whether is there a better metric to plan media so it's more holistic, that it actually, then marketing directors can actually say this entire campaign or this entire engagement with these agencies is actually delivering X ROI or ROAS or whatever it is. I think there is something missing from a financial perspective, and I think what then happens is brand advertising is being dropped a lot more. So a lot of our clients are saying, we just fundamentally don't do brand anymore, we just do performance. And we keep saying to them, that's fine, but you can't keep doing performance forever. There is going to be diminishing return. You have to keep doing brand, and there's just something missing. And I don't know the answer, but I am seeing, and maybe gaming is taking our budget then, because what you're saying is...
Not all of it. Definitely not all of it.
But I think there's something around the synergy of it, right? There should be how is it all sequenced in the right way that it is the optimum media kind of plan? Is it then, these channels, then these channels, and actually they're all related with the same message, and they usually aren't. So there is still something missing in that space. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my thinking.
I think one of the things that we struggle with, and I don't have the answer, fortunately, if someone here does, then congratulations, is understanding how the different media platforms interact with each other and how we measure that. And the idea that someone watches a single screen, consecutively, just focused on one screen only for one time and watches one ad or whatever, just doesn't seem to make sense. It's just intuitively that's not the expectation for not just Gen Z audiences as well. I mean, there's the idea of having a live second screen is kind of inherent in a lot of commissioning of content now in terms of TV and video. Is understood that people will be following it separately on another screen. So how do we measure that concurrent behaviour? How do we plan for that? How do we have consistency across different platforms? Big challenge. And if there are some answers, that would be great.
Wow, look, I've been super greedy because there's just so much to cover in this. But I wanted to ask all the questions, so I'm sorry I didn't come over to you guys. But please do come and speak to our panelists afterwards. Very quick way to wrap up. Could you just tell me something you're super excited by? What's going to be the future of this? As a classic panel closer question, isn't it? What are you excited by? What's going to happen next?
I was really excited yesterday. I posted about this on LinkedIn. I'm not a very good LinkedIn poster, but there's a new social channel called Air Chat, and I just find it to be fascinating. So it's talk only. There is video as well, but it's talk. It's basically like Twitter but voice only. I just find that fascinating. Like there's something beautiful and simple about. We love podcasts now. We love hearing audio. It's something about not being as engaged on your phone, but actually listening. So something really nice and simple about it. But then it also opens up a whole minefield of your voice being used for LLMs. It has same with photos, I guess. But they're taking that on to kind of train their models. They're also then not moderating correctly at the moment. It's quite a minefield, so it could be quite bad. But it was also quite interesting. So I was just like, is this the next kind of threads that will just crash and burn very quickly, or is it the future and we're trying to step away from being so engrossed by social? I thought that was really interesting.
Thanks. Nick?
Well, I'm going to go old school and I just happened to be editing a report on this yesterday, which was really about looking at some, and it's slightly counterintuitive to everything we've been talking about, but actually European commercial broadcasters are starting to fight back a little bit, and they're starting to create some interesting content that's engaging with audiences, and ITVX is actually doing, on some metrics, is doing pretty well. So a little bit, rather than this sort of sense that TV is just in permanent decline and that Gen Z don't care about it or other people don't care about it, some signs that that's not quite the case.
Yeah, maybe linear broadcast in decline, but AV growing.
Yeah.
Two things. I'm excited to watch the TV adaptation of the game Fallout because it looks incredible. And also I'm excited that there's, two identical looking people who represent gaming talking at an event that doesn't have gaming in the name.
Yeah, 100%.
If I stay on brand with Gen Z, I think the success of cloud gaming, for example, because as we know, they are consuming content very quickly and their attention span is very limited. So if they get bored, they can jump out and go into the next AAA very, very easily. I think that's amazing for Gen Z and millennials, which I will hold on to that title as hard as I possibly can. But aside from that, the end of Final Fantasy VII, that is exactly what I am personally waiting for.
Brilliant. Well, please put your hands together for a brilliant panel.